Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have really special guests, and today we go to Summer Watson. She invited me for her podcast and she asked me, what is the word that describes your life? And if I remember correctly, I said adventure. But when I think what you're doing, the word curiosity comes to my mind. Please give us a little intro of what you're doing today and what's coming up next. I'm so happy to hear everything that what you're doing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the invite. I'm excited to be here and to be exchanging, this conversation with you because that we as humans, we learn a lot from learning about others, what I call phenomenology, their lived experiences. When about a word that kind of defines me, it is phenomenology. It is that lived experience. It is what does that look like for me, for you, for others that I interact with. And so with that said, I kind of had an interesting beginning. So when I was very young, when I was first born at 6 months, I had a hole in my small intestine. I ended up going into a coma. My mom she was a young mom. She kept taking me back and forth to the doctor, back and forth. And they were like, nothing's wrong. She's got the stomach flu. She's got a cold. Well, finally, 2 weeks later, she takes me back in and I end up going into a coma right there in the doctor's office. And they take me into exploratory surgery. They get me to the ER, take me into exploratory surgery and find this hole. And from that, my mom always said, it didn't matter if you were strapped down to the table, you had all kinds of machines coming off of you, feeding tubes, all these different things. You were always smiling. You were always bouncing back. And here you are. You weren't necessarily supposed to be here, but you made it. And I feel like there have been all those reflection points, a lot of those in my life. And yet here I am. Here I am to do something, to make a difference. And it keeps me going. It keeps me excited. And what keeps me excited is knowing that I'm excited about being out in community, building community, but more importantly, learning about other people's lived experiences. And so this has kind of been the filter that's gone through the whole concept of my life, my journey. And so in the professional aspect of my journey, let's do a little switch here. I started out in human services very early on. So when I graduated from college, I went to UC Berkeley, and that was an experience in itself. I always say the experience wasn't necessarily always in the classroom. The things that I learned in regards to how I learned to pay my bills, live on my own, live in a sorority, be sorority president, like all these different things that I got in the philanthropy that I learned how to do, set up and create within community. That was exciting. So those were things that very early on I started to do. And when I thought about my career, I thought, what is it that I want to do? I want to go out and build community. I want to see how I can support community. So I actually got a master's in human services with a specialty in community counseling, which meant that I could be out in community building big collaboratives and programs and such. And so that's what I've done. And then I also got a doctorate in clinical psych, which I could combine with that. Now, as a business owner, I bring all these incredible skills forward to apply to my business called Core Women, which stands for Core, which is with a K, how we kinetically connect. O is how we organically learn from each other. R is how we reshape our lives through diverse interaction. And then E is how we empower each other to promote change. And that streams through everything that I do, every program, every coaching that I'm in. And so every talk or every seminar that I facilitate, because I do live and digital seminars, there's so much that I do, but those principles or those pillars are what filter through everything that I do.
Oh, amazing. I don't even know where to start. What comes to my mind is like never giving up. and also your curiosity, again, that word curiosity, and learning from others, but also bringing people together. It's that community aspect. This is so important, especially today when we hear about mental health. People are lonely, the loneliness in the workplace where they compare it to smoking 15 cigarettes per day, and you're creating community. What's next? I know you have an interesting community initiative coming up.
I do have, it's called Core Mentorship Solutions. And so Core Mentorship Solutions is going to be springboarded fairly soon. And so it is about cross-generational mentorship and leadership and what that looks like. There is a gap here somewhere that we're missing in regards to mentorship. And there's a lot of variables and a lot of factors that have been targeted in relation to mentorship. But I believe that our cross-generational mentorship, there's a lull or a gap, and we need to bridge that gap somehow. And so that's the program that we're launching, that we're going to be springboarding here pretty soon. And it's going to be in conjunction with a leadership program, because I believe that both go hand in hand. It's going to look different for each company, and we're going to provide the guidelines. And yet we're going to also sit down with each company to develop a program and what's unique to their company. And it's going to be holistic. So there's a lot of holistic approaches that we're going to look at when we start developing these programs with each of these companies, because really our idea is acknowledging the past, embracing the future, and then building a brighter future together. It really is the past, the present, and then the future. How does that look for each company? One of the things that I'm also bringing into this is having studied psychology for years, having been a practitioner for years, I've worked in hospitals, I've assessed people, I've assessed systems. When I get to sit down with a company or with a person, I can assess them from a multifactorial perspective. It's not just one thing that makes up a person or makes up a company. There are multiple things. It's a holistic ideology. And so from that, there's theory behind that. So it doesn't just come out of nowhere. I'm a researcher by trade as well. When you look at a holistic perspective, one of the fathers of psychology, his name was Alfred Adler. Now, Alfred Adler, he deviated from Freud, and he said, listen, Freud, these are my own words. Hey, listen, Freud.
Hey, listen. Listen to Summer. Listen to Summer, please.
He said, not everything comes from the subconscious, the psychosexual. There are other things that we need to consider here. And one of the things that Adler said is there is a point of discouragement somewhere when people start depressing, or people start, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's really start deviating from society or going into their own shell or doing things that are making them more anxious. And so where is that point of discouragement? Where's that point of discouragement with the person or a company? So what are we looking at here? Where are we faltering? And so that's my job, is to come in as a human services provider to look at these companies and say, what's the holistic perspective what are the variables that we're looking at to really identify where we're going to get a good cross-general mentorship program functioning well? On top of that, what does this leadership look like? Are your leaders going to be open to learning from those that may not be as old as them, that might be from a different generation? And we're talking about leadership, technology, advancement. We're talking about changes. There's all kinds of things that we are looking at. And let's take, for instance, technology. When you look at technology, you're thinking quick development, quick changes. Things are going very fast. And so we've got a generation out there that has come up with this, has learned about technology, has used technology, has learned to change with it fairly quickly. Their values are a little different because of technology. So how are we, as maybe not as a millennial, but a Gen Xer, how am I understanding this? From what perspective am I pushing back? Am I embracing it? Am I welcoming that change? From maybe a millennial or Gen Z, are they going to be open to teaching, to educating, to helping, to supporting from a different perspective and saying, what, I can actually help this company. I can, share my knowledge. I can share A, B, and C about technology, because we can incorporate it into some of the things that we're doing and become more efficient. Our leaders, both young and older, are they accepting of this idea? Are they embracing it? And if not, why? So we go in there and we ask those questions: how, why, when can we do this, and create a structure. And so that structure is needed because a lot of people don't know where to begin. They might have programs, but what are those first, second, third steps? And so I always say, when you go into a seminar or a talk and you're so excited and you're so inspired and you're just like, man, I feel so good, and you leave. And if they didn't give you the steps or at least some guidance, then you feel kind of like, wow, I feel a little let down. I feel a little discouraged, and they fall flat, right? We don't want these companies to fall flat. We don't want people to fall flat. We want them to continue to be excited about where they work, about what they're pursuing, about their goals, and about those values that they put up on a wall and say, this is what we are guided by. Because if you don't return to those values and do some of these check-ins with yourself or with your company, you might get so far away from those values, might forget. But what we're trying to do is incorporate a program that will have sustainability with those values, with people, with programs, with just getting people and keeping people excited at their work.
We all know that the 30, 60, 90 days are crucial in a career. I always feel like when you start a new job, you're like, wow, I'm excited. And then after, I think 30, I would say 60 days, you find some gaps, loopholes, or whatever. Is it then that you would tackle those people at 60 days, or how do you foresee that?
I love that question. Thank you for asking that question, Suzanne, because as a clinician, we look at 3 to 6 months. It's the same concept. When we look at somebody going into a job or somebody starting a new relationship, or in a job is a new relationship.
Sure.
We look absolutely, or we look at 3 to 6 months. And the reason we look at those 3 to 6 months is because people become more relaxed. They show more of their authentic self, their personality. You really get a better idea of who your company is and what they stand for. But not only that, but how they function, how they practice, how they put things into place and practice. Now, let's say you get into a company from government to nonprofit to profit. I've worked for all three. You see it. Is there any structure? Are they living by those values? What do those values actually mean? How are those values not just part of, but are practiced within a company, within an organization? What does that look like? Are they valuing at the same time they are happy, or I have identified those values in their strategic plan? Are they living in alignment with that? But does that also still, within that 3 to 6 month time frame, does it still align with the person that was hired, with the manager that has been there for 3 to 6 to 8 to 10 years? So where's your points of reflection? Where do you stop and say, maybe I need to go back to that strategic plan. Maybe I need to get these leaders, whether they're younger or older or baby boomers to Gen Zs, maybe we need to get them together to start looking at, how are we all in alignment with these values? But more importantly, is the company still in alignment with their own values that they set out with? To me, you get to see a lot of that being questioned at the 3 to 6 month mark by the new employees, because they're the ones seeing it in real time, very early stages. And they're saying, do these people really align with their own values? Is what they told me during the interview actually still stand true? And sometimes our leaders need to go back and go, how am I actually representing and putting into practice these values?
Listening to you, what comes to my mind, that might be another business that you can develop. It could actually start before the person starts in an organization.
Yes, absolutely. Here's the thing, Suzanne. Everybody needs to take a real strong look at themselves. What are my own values? I wrote a book, and the book has a very interesting title. The book basically takes the idea of strong language and poses it up against your own values. The reason we did that is because, and took that whole subject matter to identify your own values, is because when we grow up and we're little kids, whereas little kids, our parents, if we were to say the ish word or the F word or something, they'd be like, oh my goodness, you better not say that. That's a bad, naughty word. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people grow up and go, wow, this is what we were taught, but we use those words anyway. So are they part of our value system or our core beliefs? Are they part of our everyday language? You got to think about those things, because those are the things that we've been told and conditioned to believe. But what are we actually practicing? What do we actually stand for as a human being? And let me give you an example, like a personal example. Not only did I write that book, but as I grew up, I went to, from 5th to 8th grade, I went to Catholic school. And I was sent to Catholic school with my brother, and I loved it. It provided a great foundation. As I got older and I thought about religion and spirituality, I really had to take a strong look at myself and ask myself, what are my beliefs? What are my beliefs and values? Did I believe in every single tenet that I was taught in the Catholic religion or not? If I say that I am, then how am I practicing that? If I'm not, that's okay too. You can have your own beliefs, but I think a lot of people feel a sense of guilt or feel a sense of, I've got to be loyal to, right? To my parents, to my caregivers, but if you're not living in that authenticity and you don't know what your true values are, you're living out of alignment. And I think that same goes for each person as well as a company.
And I always have a last question.
Yes.
What do you do when you don't work? You seem to be a very bubbly person and full of energy. Is there a time when you relax? Can you relax?
I can relax. I love to relax. I love to travel. I really love to travel. I actually just did a 4-day trip. Yes, I embedded some personal things in there as well as some kind of lighthearted stuff in there too, because I love to laugh and I love to travel. I lived in Japan, just love to learn about culture. Kyoto in Japan is incredible. I lived on a little island off of Japan called Okinawa. It's like the mainland's idea of vacation in Okinawa. It's a vacation destination. It's beach, it's beautiful, snorkeling, diving, those kinds of things. I was surrounded by an incredible beach. When I go to mainland Japan and go to Kyoto, that place is like balance. It's like serenity. It's like calming for me. It blends the old traditions with modern technology, and the way they do it is so beautiful. And it's not curated. It's just organic and it's incredible. And so you see people who have come through I don't want to say ranks, but have come through the whole history of being geishas. There's like 100 real geishas in the world. They're there in Kyoto. And to see that and to see what they're presenting, the floral arrangement, the dance, the music that they're playing, it's incredible. And to know that there's computers and technology and they use some of these resources somehow to blend this perfectly is what I love to see in community. And that's what I'm talking about, the core mentorship solutions. We are bringing and acknowledging the past, embracing the present, and building a brighter future together. So that's the core mentorship solution. And I think that's why I love Kyoto so much, is because they do it so magically.
You couldn't have summarized it more beautifully. I was just listening to you. Okay, Kyoto, I see everything. This is exactly what you just mentioned about the mentorship program. We cannot wait to see it flourishing, travel with you on the next journey that you are offering to the world. So thank you so much. What are you taking away? Mentorship, leadership, community, and traveling. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have wonderful guests. Come and join us, learn with them, grow with them, ask questions. And also, Take It From the Ironwoman is the book Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. We have episodes every Monday coming out. Follow us on your preferred podcast platform. Write a review, like us, and support us. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.